So if we think the sort of universe is a computer simulation, and all the physics, all the problems that physics cannot deal with can be easily dealt with. Yeah. For example, why is there gravity? We can argue that because it's programmed to do so. When the apple leaves the branch, it's programmed to fall at a certain acceleration. Yeah. And why magnets work? Yeah. Actually, physics cannot explain why magnets works and why opposite attracts. But if you program it to be so, and then it will be so. So in Newton's term, the universe is a stage. What we are suggesting here is that the stage as a backstage also. In the backstage is the computer, is the codes which run it. Yeah. Entanglement is another problem physicists having trouble with. Yeah, why two particles entangle? If it's a computer simulation, then it's very easy. It's like 2 points on a computer screen. If in the program you make it entangle, it will entangle. Entanglement is actually a widespread phenomenon in nature. In polar bears, in mating season, the male can travel hundreds of miles to find the female, and he almost walks in straight line. It doesn't make sense. You cannot smell anything hundreds of miles away. Yeah. But it has to be something operating behind it. It's like a GPS, which guides it to the right definition, the destination. Yeah. And migration of animals, like birds and the salmon, go across Atlantic Ocean to go back to the original stream where it's born. How does it do that? So it's actually, I can see it can be said it's entanglement to the destination, which is already programmed to do. How does it do that? To make the movement like this, to coordinate so well, if you make a robotic fish like this, the computing power would be enormous. And I don't think it's inconceivable the small brain of the fish can cope this amount of computation. Yeah. So it has to be something which actually control it, at the background, which makes all the fish run the same program to be able to coordinate like this. It won't be the brain. So by understanding this, we can actually make use of the phenomena. For example, one of the projects I'm working on is autonomous driving project. Many big companies are working on it, but the approach is actually to install a lot of sensors to make the car very smart. Yeah. By doing so, you also make the car very expensive. Yeah, and also, if all cars are smart, they can compete. It become a war. Yeah, so I don't think this is the right approach. Alternative approach is actually to make the car very simple. Just drive it by cloud, like the fish does. The fish never bump into each other. Yeah. So why cannot we actually to use the principle? We can make car very simple. Just coordinate by cloud. Yeah. So this is the project I'm working on. You can actually make the car very smart, very coordinated, without too much sensor. You can control it centrally. So the idea is you can just drive the normal car, but when you get into the autonomous zone, the driver has to give up driving. You can work, you can rest, you can read, but the cloud will drive it. So that's the inspiration from the fish. To talk about the psi, we need to talk a little bit about our individual consciousness. We talked about the consciousness, the source mind. We also need to talk about the individual mind, individual consciousness. Yeah. So in this model, the individual mind is a partition of the source mind. It's like the drop in the ocean. It will have the property of the ocean, but it's part of the ocean. Because it's attached to a human body, it constrains itself to a location, a space-time. So it's like a monitor which monitor one room or one part of the world, confined by space-time, whereas the source mind is combination of all those minds. We know that we can divide the computer in different ways. Depends how often we divide the screen. We have different computer with different speed, with different memory. So actually, we can create a multiverse. Yeah. So each multiverse have a different computer running at a different clock speed with different memory. So the more you divide, the more memory you have, the more complex the program can be. So life can be more diverse. But in other layers, maybe life is much simple. Yeah. For example, we can perceive that in other dimension, the other layer, parallel universe, there isn't a solidity program. Yeah. So things does not have to be solid. Yeah. The human can exist as a light body, and they can have more freedom, less restriction. The restrictions are created by programming. So, we have a multiverse operating at different speed. Another implication is about reality. Yeah. In this model, it implies the reality is actually it's like a barcode. Yeah. Before you scan it, it doesn't make sense. It's just random. This barcode doesn't make any sense. But if you scan it and you run program, you have an output. So when we perceive something, we have to process it in the computer, in a metacomputer, and then we have an output, and then we project it out into space. So this implies if you use different program, you have different reality, actually. It also implies on this planet we actually have 70 billion worlds. It's not only one world, 7 billion worlds. Your world and my world only coincide when we run the same program on same date. Otherwise, we have different world we live in. Yeah. There are some paranormal cases. People run different program, so they have different reality. This is actually a British girl who can eat the brick like a cake. Yeah. So the brick is decoded as a cake for her.
Nih orang GMBI nih, barangan loh. Wah, kan? Iya. Wah, Panglima Bokso anak buahnya. Air kasih air.
There's many cases like this, and this guy. He can decode the nail into chips. Yeah. So for him, it's not a metal nail. It's like a chip. Yeah, we already sort of discussed this. The image can be made into a solid, and it can also make the image penetratable. Yeah, depends how you program it. in China, we do a lot of investigation into this kind of thing, and this lady, Miss Sun, she can actually shake the pill out of a bottle without opening the cover. So in this model, basically you switch off the solidity program. Now it becomes just an image, and with this image, it's not solid. Yeah, you can shake it out. We have a circle of paranormal parapsychology in investigators, researchers. There's no government funding, but people do it anyway. There's a lot of retired physicists working on it still, but there's no funding. Yeah, but there's good sources, good resources of the subject, which they can do amazing things. Yeah. One of the favorite experiment is actually to do with our former president. Yeah. Professor Crookes and the Crookes tube. I don't think Professor Crookes are giving the sort of sufficient credit to his contribution to science. Yeah. Without Crookes tube, there would be no electron discovery. Yeah, Thomson used Crookes cube to discover the electrons, and then you have modern physics, atomic model. Yeah. So our former president actually instrumental in developing physics. What I want to mention is that Professor Crookes is also instrumental in parapsychology research as well. Not only his work done here, but also people in China use Crookes tube to do experiment. And in this case, is radio optometer, where if you shine strong light on it, the blade is coated one white, one black. So if you shine strong light on it, it actually turns like a windmill. But this lady, Miss Sun, she can use her mind to turn it. It's very difficult to fake because it's in half vacuum. You cannot really touch it. But she can use her mind power to turn it. Yeah. It actually turned in the reverse direction, which is impossible actually in physics. It's not possible to make it turn the other way by light. Actually, this is turning the other way. Yeah. I think this is one of my favorite experiments. So I would like to sort of quote this in memorial of our former president. Another sort of interesting implication is about the brain. In this model, we actually think all the work is actually done in the Platonic computer, not the brain. Yeah, brain is simply actually a display of the results. Yeah, it's like the space is display of objects. The brain is actually a display of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Yeah, it's like the Navy use. You have a different pattern, which give meaning to a concept. Yeah. So the firing of the electric signals in the brain actually signify a different meaning. So in this case, the language is actually a word which given to name the program. When we think something, when we think red, we download the program redness, which give us a meaning of red. And people always find out those displays actually happens in different regions in the brain. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So the function of brain is basically a display like the television. When it's switch off, nothing there. It doesn't even remember things. Memory is stored in the Platonic realm. That's another experiment done in China. Some people can do amazing computation, very complex computation, yeah, without calculator. When you do a brain scan, and those kind of calculation actually doesn't activate the brain. The region where we usually use for computing doesn't light up, so which implies actually it's happening somewhere else. So coming back to the psi, in my model, there are three conditions for this phenomenon to occur. So the person who can perform the psi has to have a high level of consciousness beyond the physical, i.e., he or she has to go into the programming layer, into the database, yeah, to be able to change it. And he or she has to sort of interact with the Platonic computer. Yeah, it's like when you go into a car, you said, I want to go to Tower Bridge. The computer actually calculates the route for you. And in the case of driverless car, it actually drive you. All you need to do is to interact with this computer. Of course, it has to sort of switch off the physics. The physics is a separate program. If you need to display psi, you have to switch off. And this switch off is locally, usually locally, temporarily. That's why psi cannot be repeated, cannot be verified scientifically. If you put it in the lab under stringent condition, it won't work. Because the programming, maybe the physics program is strengthened and it cannot be switched off. Then the phenomena doesn't display. Another implication is about ourselves. Yeah. Basically, I think to very much a big extent, we are computer operated robots. Yeah. This is actually a very popular game in 90s. But in this case, it's not played by human. It's played by program. Mario is programmed to avoid danger and to seek a world. And I think we are running the same program, actually. Every day we run in the same program exactly like Mario. Yeah, we seek happiness. We try to avoid suffering. So exactly like him. Of course, we are running other programs like birth and death and sickness, all sorts, more complicated. But we react. We are like robots. Yeah. The bad news is that we are not able to compete with robots. Yeah. So some experts speculate in 20 years' time there's going to be as many robots as human beings on this planet. And they are going to display many jobs we have now, including driving, including lawyer and even doctors. Yeah. So our sort of working space is going to be dramatically reduced. Yeah. So I think this is the time we look into seriously, paranormal research seriously, because by doing so, we can create another space, which is beyond the physical, where we can work effectively. We can contribute to different levels of multiverse. And to do that, we need new science. As I said, the physics won't work. Yeah. So we need a new science, which has to be fundamentally different. So, for example, traditional science, i.e. physics, you have a matter as primary, which is the foundation of everything. You derive everything from matter, and you use reductionism. And for tools, you use mathematics equations to describe the world. In the new model, I'm suggesting we use consciousness as a primary, as the base for everything. And we use holism as an approach, and we use computation as a tool. Basically, this is what I'm trying to share. And so in this model, we presume a Platonic computer. And in this model, consciousness is defined as a power to conceive, to perceive, to be self-aware, and is the most fundamental. And the computer is made by, of, with, from consciousness. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Well, that was quite a workout, wasn't it? But the whole time I was making connections with all sorts of kind of parallel things, Swedenborg, Husserl, all sorts of thinkers were coming up, bubbling up from this extraordinary coverage from earliest classical thinking moralist to tomorrow's thinking. And the presentation, of course, was absolutely marvelous.
Thank you.
Well, would you like to take some
Yes, happy to, yeah.